KG never. We'll start with the Navkar mantra. Om Namo Arihantanam. Om Namo Sittanam. Om Namo Ayariyanam. Om Namo Jayanam. Namo Loe Savasahunam. Eso Panchanamukaro. Sava Pava Panasano. Mangalalancha Salvesim. Paramam Have Mangalam. Paramam Have Mangalam. So we talked a bit last week about what obligation we have to promote Jainism and whether that's our responsibility or not. And we also talked about how each of us is an ambassador for Jainism. So this week, in an effort to be a good ambassador, I want to address one of the common questions we always get and we're always going to get. That is, how is Jainism different from Hinduism? Now, Hinduism is so popular that it's a reference point for most people. Most people know it, right? So if we learn about the differences between Jainism and Hinduism, we can help people understand Jainism. And then we can be a better ambassador. And if you think that it's our responsibility to promote Jainism, then we can help do that. So one of the big differences is that Hindus believe in the concept of Brahman. Sometimes in that Brahman, not Brahma, but Brahman goes by different names called the Absolute, the Divine, or God. Okay, so we're just going to use the word God. So Hindus believe that God pervades everything, pervades the entire universe. It's part of you, it's part of you, it's part of everything. And it's not, well, we'll get to whether it's your soul or not, but God created the universe, God sustains the universe, and God will destroy the universe. Okay, so that's a really big important point. That's a fundamental point of how Jainism is different from Hinduism. That is, Jains don't believe that a God created the universe. That is, Jains believe the universe is eternal. It was always there and it will always be there. But Hindus believe that God created the universe and sustains the universe and will destroy the universe. And that is called the Holy Trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. That is, Brahma is creation. That not Brahman, okay, what we're talking about, but the Brahma, the god Brahma, represents creation. Vishnu represents the sustaining of the universe, and Shiva represents the destruction of the universe. And so, if you believe that God created the universe, that alters kind of the whole religion. Once you believe that, because now you have to, if something created the universe and can destroy the universe, and that thing has emotions, you can run afoul of that God, right? And something can happen to you, or you try to please that God, and you perform different things to try to please that God. So Jains believe, of course, that, for example, let's take Mahavir. Mahavir didn't create the universe. Mahavir was a soul, just like me and you. And he was a man, and a person, just like me and you. And we admire the soul for the qualities that it had, not that it has some power over us to alter our life or to destroy our life or to make our life better. So that's it's also kind of one of the hardest things to get your mind around. That is, okay, so God is in everything. And when we die, we return to that soul. That is, God is the great soul, and we are a part of that. And when we become liberated, we return to that soul, and they call it, we are unbound, or our soul is boundless, because it becomes part of the great soul. So that's the first basic difference. The second basic difference is that Hindus believe that there are 4 goals in life. Jains believe we have one goal in life, right? That is to attain moksha. And how do we do that? We do as much nirjara as possible, right? Hindus believe there are 4 goals in life. Number 1, dharma, is the spiritual path. You follow the dharma. Number 2 is artha, the material prosperity that you pursue. So you pursue material prosperity. Number 3 is kama, or the enjoyment of the material world. Hey, come on in. And number 4 is moksha, the liberation from the material world, right? So this is the biggest difference. That is, this is the second biggest difference. That is number 2 and number 3. You pursue material prosperity and you enjoy the material world. And so that corresponds with Hindus believe that there are 4 stages of your life. The first stage is when you're a student, you're learning. The second stage is when you're a householder. The third stage is when you retire and you're searching for the truth. And the fourth stage is when you renounce the world. So as you move through life, these are the 4 stages, and they kind of roughly correspond to these 4 goals of the dharma, the artha, the kama, and the moksha. And so now, Jains, of course, believe that, well, there's not a portion of your life where you're supposed to pursue material things. And there's not a portion of your life where you're supposed to enjoy material things. You're supposed to do as best as you can to renounce them your whole life. And if you can do it when you're younger, that's great. And if you can do it when you're older, that's great. But the purpose, of course, is to do as much nirdra as possible. And remember, nirdra is the shedding of karma from your soul. And that brings us to a very important point, too. So first of all, any questions about that? Number 1 and number 2. God as a creator and the goals that we are to have while we are here.
In Hindus, the 4 goals that you mentioned, the third one is karma or
Kama.
C-A.
K-A-M-A. Yeah. Enjoyment of the material world. Okay, so that brings us to a good point about this soul and karma. That is, Hindus do believe in karma. That is, your actions result in karma that binds to your soul, and then you receive the fruits of that action, right? But it's very different because Hindus do not believe that karma pollutes your soul. So Jains believe that, well, your soul has these characteristics: infinite power, infinite energy, infinite happiness, and it is the karma that pollutes your soul that is constraining you to this body, right? And that's why we try to get rid of all our karma. It's not like that in Hinduism. Although there is reincarnation and karma and like that, the purpose is to achieve liberation. But the karma doesn't pollute your soul. Rather, you do things like karma yoga, which is performing duties, jnana yoga, studying scriptures, bhakti yoga, loving God through devotion and service. That doesn't erase the karma. That doesn't shed the karma from your soul. You just do those things, and then you become unbound, and then you return to the eternal soul, right? So it's not that karma is polluting your soul. Rather, it's just forcing you into this cycle of life and death. And once you do these different yogas, you don't get rid of karma. And to uncover your soul more fully, rather, you do these things, and then you will return to the great soul. Or your soul will become part of God as it once was, because God permeates it.
Do they have anything that get rid of karma? Or are you saying those activities? You're saying those activities are not getting rid of the karma?
Right.
What, do they have something that considered?
I think they just, when your karma comes to fruition, that's it. Then you get rid of it. But it's not necessarily that you get rid of it, and that is how you become liberated, because it's not polluting your soul. Okay, questions about that? Okay. So the next one, of course, the fourth main difference between Hinduism and Jainism is that Hinduism is polytheistic. There are various gods, and they represent various qualities. There's just the one creator, remember, the Brahman. But it's not really manifestations of the god, but there are various gods that represent the qualities of different things. That is how you access God. So God is neither male nor female, neither human nor animal, but everything and everywhere. Okay? And so when we talk about different gods in Hinduism, like Ganesh and Saraswati, because God is not male or female or human or animal, those are different ways to worship God because of those specific qualities. And people like different ones of the gods. So Ganesh, the god of wisdom. Saraswati is the god of learning, the goddess of learning, excuse me. Lakshmi is the goddess of prosperity. Rama shows people how to live the path of Dharma. And Krishna is the god of eradicating evil and protecting what is good. So all of these are qualities of God, and they're embodied in these different gods. It's kind of the wrong word, right? Okay, let's scratch that and let's use a different word. So all of these things are the qualities of God, and people like to worship these different qualities in the form of different deities. Okay, and that these deities are those names we just touched upon. And so the difference, of course, in Jainism is that there is no God. There is no God as a creator. We idolize, I think that's the right word, we idolize the souls of the Tirthankars because we want to emulate. Not because they have a power over what goes on at Earth. In fact, they are disinterested in what goes on Earth. And that's a good thing because we want to be disinterested in what's going on Earth. And the big things is that these gods have emotion. And so they like being idolized. And they dislike it when you do something that they don't like or what they don't represent. And because they have emotions, they can people pray to them and pray for their favor and pray for their kind of help in their life. Whereas we know that help is not coming. Right? We have to do it on our own. So that's one of the big differences. I would say that Hinduism is very polytheistic, and Jainism is not theistic at all.
That's a good point. I don't know when that point of multiple gods, I used to say the same thing because we have. I didn't think of it when you were presenting.
Right.
I would say Hinduism, we all have multiple gods.
Right. Right, and it's very important. Remember that Tirthankars are souls just like you, and we admire the things that they did because we wish that we could do those things, and we want to use them as an example to do those things in our life.
I think the biggest difference that we see between Hinduism or any other religion and Jainism is that other religion teaches you how to be the best worshipper of a god, but Jainism teaches you how to become a god. Okay? If you think about that you have the same power as what Mahavir and other souls had. So that's the big difference. What we think other religions teaches you how to be a worshipper of Lord Shiva or Rama and all. Well, you have a power to become one of them. That's the difference.
Thanks for coming today. We're learning about the differences between Jainism and Hinduism. And so we talked about Hinduism has a kind of a God as a creator concept. God created the universe. Hinduism is polytheistic. We're talking about the differences between Jainism and Hinduism. Hinduism espouses different things that you're supposed to do as human. The main differences being at some stage you're supposed to pursue material things and enjoy those material things while you're a human. And those are the main differences. Any other questions or comments? Does anybody have any kind of story where they interacted with the Hindu?
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Which one is considered older?
So I believe that Jainism is considered older, but the various research that I've done has always said that they're all on Hindu sites, so they said that Hinduism was older. So I guess the right answer is I don't know. One thing I do know is that a lot of people think Hinduism is so popular that a lot of people think that Jainism is an offshoot of Hinduism or like a different sect of Hinduism. I do know that that's not true. And this Hindu research that I have done affirms that that's not true. And so they are And one thing that's important to know is that, as we discussed last time, whether you believe it or not, religions are in a competition with each other for followers. And if a religion such as Jainism once did was in danger of losing a lot of followers, they will co-opt a lot of popular popular pujas, popular stavans, popular parts of Hindu culture in order to remain popular, right? That's just a fact of life, and that's what Jainism has done. Hinduism is so popular; it's the third most popular religion in the world. There's hundreds of millions of followers. 95% are in India, and so it's only natural. I guess maybe not natural is the right word. It's only inevitable that Jains, being so outnumbered, would try to change different parts of the practice of the religion to make it more accommodating to Hinduism. Whether you like it or not, that's just the reality of what it is. So you can't change it. There's no need to worry about it. But as we've identified today, there are some key differences that make it a separate religion from Hinduism. So the Hindu scriptures are the Vedas and the Upanishads, and that's where most of the principles come from. And they were an oral tradition that was passed down until they got put in writing, I think about thousands of years ago. And that's one thing I wanted to mention. A lot of people don't understand. There are pros and cons to having an oral tradition. People think, oh, it's only the best when you write it down. And that's actually not true. One of the beauties of having an oral tradition and not writing anything down is you get to pass on the context of the teaching. And by that I mean, well, you get to make sure that the person you're teaching has the interpretation correct before he leaves his apprenticeship, his or her apprenticeship. And so that way, that continuity is there, that same interpretation is there throughout the ages. The problem, obviously, the great thing about writing things down is you can spread it around the world for basically free, okay? The problem with that is once you write it down and you spread it across the world, well, that person just sees the writing and then has their own interpretation of that writing because you weren't there to help them read it. Well, that obviously begs the question that, well, why don't you just write down the interpretation or write down the context in whatever you wrote down? But we know that's impossible, right? You can't write down the interpretation and the context of it while you were there because it would become too unwieldy. You know that when we were in school, we had these books, right? And we had to do these book reports, and the teacher would always tell us about the author and where he grew up and what was going on at the time and what the predominant thought at the time was. And we would go, why do we have to learn this stuff? I just want to read the book. Just ask me about the book. And well, the teacher would say, no, you have to learn that stuff because that will tell you what the book means. And then we would say, well, why didn't the author just write it down in the book? Right? Well, you can't write down all of that in the book. You can only write down the book. You can't write down what was in the air and what was the dominant thought at the time and what your values were and how those values were a result of the war that happened 5 years ago. You can't put all that in the book, right? So with the oral tradition, you can get that interpretation right before you release that person in the world. If you just write it down, you can't get that. And so obviously, so once you write something down and you release it all over the world, you'll have 500 different interpretations and it's out of your control. So most people don't know that there is a value in an oral tradition, and that's what it is. So the Vedas and the Upanishads in Hinduism outline everything we talked about the Brahman, the polytheism, the merging of the soul back into the great soul, and all of that. Questions or comments on that? So tell me what you know about Hinduism.
What I learned about it is, at least, that Hinduism started as sort of a culture. The people living on the river of Indus River, which was known in the past, basically that's where it started, and that's how it started, and then obviously expanded from there. Now, in terms of timeline, I don't know the context of Jainism and Hinduism, and like you said, Jainism is not sect of Hinduism, which is known. So that is good to know. I didn't know if that, I haven't researched, so I didn't know with that firm understanding that it is not.
Right.
But that's what my recollection of Hinduism is, or Hindu culture or religion. In terms of oral versus written, I think we're in the era of written stuff,
right,
and we believe in the written stuff. But I see a pro of oral, of understanding the context before it's released. So that makes sense.
Right.
The idea of Hinduism was introduced when we were young while watching Ramayana and Mahabharata. I think that was the early signs of getting introduced to all the different types of gods, and how Krishna comes and saves, or how Arjuna is saved by or preached by. I think at a very young age, those and that was our typical routine on a Sunday morning when we did not have a lot of other. There is no Netflix or those kind of things. So yeah, I would say those two series back in India at least were the ones which were very popular and were shown or played almost in every home.
Right. And that's a very important point. The Mahabharata and the Ramayana are stories developed to show the principles of the Vedas and the Upanishads. And they're great stories, right? They're very complex and they have a lot of meaning and a lot of they work on a lot of different levels. So if you're a kid, you can enjoy the plot, you can enjoy the action, and then when you get older, you can start wondering why the characters did what they did. And then once you become an adult, you can start wondering what the philosophy behind them were, and that will lead you to the Vedas and the Upanishads. And in fact, they're considered the great works of India, right? If anybody knows anything about any Indian literature, it's the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. And so that's a very important point. Jains don't have that, right? We have the stories of Mahavir's life. That's kind of our. We have like the books, right? The Agams and the Svarta Sutra, but those are like the Vedas and the Upanishads. They're like, this is the truth. This is how you should live your life. This is it. It's not wrapped up in a story to get people interested in it, to get characters, to get action, to get... So maybe, that's one of the things we can do, right? Maybe we can have a story that... Maybe we can have a story. What would a story be? What would the Jain Mahabharata be?
So a couple of points. I think there are stories, but maybe not as famous as like Mahabharata and Ramayana, right? It is about some Mara Sahibs and, like you said, Mahavir's story, his life and everything. And same thing we have for other Tirthankars as well, but not as famous because it never got commercialized, like showing on TV where people would follow. And then another comment is, so there is also Jain version of Rama and Mahabharata. And there are some subtle differences on how the TV show interprets it to make it a little bit more, spicy, I guess, versus that. But you're right. I mean, it's not as famous as these things.
Right, and it's not as famous because there's not as many Jains as there are Hindus. Right? And so, that is a good point. And some people wouldn't want that for Jainism, right? Some people wouldn't want a commercialization of the religion. Some people wouldn't want it to be a kind of a mass market product. They would see somehow that you are denigrating the religion. But for me, it's just, it's a way to enjoy the principles of the religion on a different level, especially for children, right? And so, and we have that thing. You're right. Our kids in Patsala, they learn the theory, they learn about the Tirthankars' lives and like what they did in their life. But they weren't all, of course, alive at the same time, and they didn't interact with each other and things like that. So maybe we can develop a Jain story to explicate Jain.
But I'd like to add to that. I remember the days when Mahabharata and Ramayana was going on in India, and it was like I think Sunday morning, 9 to 10 or something like that, and almost there's a pin drop silence.
Yeah.
Nobody moves during that time frame. Everybody's sitting in front of TV, and I obviously the child never thought about it as a teaching of a religion. Now that we look back, we said okay, but it was so well ingrained on everybody's life. I mean, I can't even imagine like certain Jains or non-Jains or Hindu or it was such a thing that everybody does. It's like a cricket match. Like people watch it religiously. And thinking back now, as we discuss about it, like that's how it that was the introduction, right? I mean, because a lot of us may have gone to some Hindu temples, but not in a learning way. This was an artificial way to, or a way to learn it, not artificial. So thinking about it, yeah, why don't we have such a thing for us, where you just learn it unconsciously and then.
And the reason, like he said, why it was actually a major success is at that time the options were also limited, right? So if you were to do something now it is one of the 1,000 options.
Now even within the house, four people are watching different things.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
So now it's very difficult to force or show something. That time we didn't have any choice. In fact, we didn't even have a TVs and all, so we used to run and go to neighbor's
Somebody else's house. So the one with the
Exactly.
TV was all full to watch Ramayana, and it was.
And there you didn't have choice to record it and watch later and had the importance and there was no second, there's no repeat, you watch it or you. So it was a different time. It was done very well. So yeah.
But is that the stories, or is that truly what has happened, right? Just like what we are saying, all our Tirthankars did exist. Same thing for the Hinduism. They do exist, and there are places in India even today. It's even more things to find for Hinduism religion, places like where Mahabharata happened, or Karna Lake, and you can look at Panipat, and all of those things are there. Ayodhya, you see it in Krishna Janmabhoomi, and you see it on Mathuras and all of that. So I think both have the facts, but if we truly put in perspective for Jainism, if when Krishna was there as an individual, as a human, could be he our Tirthankar at some point based on the way he has shared his karmas. So that is another soul existed, and if you put that in Jainism perspective, could that be?
So according to Jain Jain Mahabharata, most of the characters, they went to moksha or will be going to moksha if you read that. And again, every people who does nirjara and attains moksha, not everybody is Tirthankar.
Correct. Liberated soul.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So Tirthankar is for you have to have certain eligibility and what you do. But there are all of them or most of them. If you read, parents tell me like even Pandavas.
Exactly.
Right. So Pandavas went to moksha, and if you go to Shatrunjay, there is a temple, and they say they did sadhana there and they went to moksha.
Correct.
So it is sort of linked, but like I said, it's a different version of stories from Hinduism. They say they did certain things and went to equivalent moksha for Hinduism, and Jainism is a different spin to it. So it's that. That.
So one other thing I wanted to mention is that we just talked about the differences today. There are many similarities, but so there's quite a few similarities, right? You have to have right knowledge, right action, right speech. You do you worry about your karma, and you try to do good things so you don't get bad karma. So there's quite a few similarities.
This is just one similarity sometimes I feel is like, when they have fasting and all, some of the things that they don't eat rice or this and that. Like the ISKCON people I feel that sometimes it's really matches with our fasting or Ambel or something like that. So somehow that also sometimes they follow those kind of things which we are following.
And then different sects of Hinduism, where Brahmins, they are a little bit more stronger and closer to Jainism in terms of what they eat and not, right? So they have similar concept of underground vegetables they avoid. So there are similarities, and also the part ahimsa part. I think that's pretty similar. They don't have like bakri.
Yes.
So there are some similarities and differences.
Right, and as you know, many Hindus are vegetarian as well. So, in fact, what I want to leave you with is that there are more similarities than differences. We just talked about the differences today and how that will help you be a better ambassador for Jainism. So, but this class has always been how you can apply what you learned outside of these four walls into your life. So, now that you know about the differences between Jainism and Hinduism, has that clarified anything for you? Has that made you change what you might do later? Has that allowed you to become a better kind of person when talking about different religions? How can we apply this to our life?
I have one question related to this that I don't have an answer for. I understand the deep Jainism says that we are not supposed to go to a Hindu temple, let's say, or any temple other than Jain temple. It recently came up in one of our discussions, and I was wondering, let's say Hinduism, for example, is it okay for Jain to go to Hindu temple? That would be something that I would like to get some insight on. I do it. I believe wherever I can go and have a peaceful time, whether it's a Jain temple or Hindu temple, or even a mosque or a church for that reason, it's okay for me personally. But I understood from somebody that Jainism doesn't allow that.
So I would like to know where that person got that idea.
Yeah.
So there is a concept of heresy and apostasy, right, in religion. That is, you shouldn't speak falsely. That is, if you believe or promote this other religion, that is a bad mark on you. I have not seen anywhere that Jainism said that. Certainly we have the concept of anigantvad, and certainly Hindus have a similar concept of the many forms of accessing the divine. So the many ways that we can access God. Because God is not male or female, human or animal, some people like the different qualities that are represented. So Hindus certainly believe that worship can come in many forms, and they're very open to that. I would disagree with the person that said that to you. Certainly our concept is, if you monia karma, which is the deluding karma. So if you don't understand the truth, let's say if you're another religion, and you don't understand the truth of how the universe works, that is going to cause you additional karma, because you're in that kind of fog, and you're attracting karma without doing any samvara and nirjara. So that's the bad part, okay? But going to a Hindu temple, I don't think so. Talking with other people or learning about their religion, I don't think so, okay? So I would disagree with that person. And if it is true, I would like to know where it is. My mind is always open. I don't pretend that I know everything about Jainism. I would like to know where it is, or if there's somewhere in some writing that says, oh, you'll get bad karma merely for going to a different temple that's not
Actually,
Jain.
I have heard this while growing up. Maharaj Sahib and Masiji used to say this too. My mom was a firm believer. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, not, I would say 15 years ago, if I used to ask her, let's go to temple, she will stand outside, but not come inside. But from last 20 years, she has changed, and now she comes to the temple. But yeah, she used to say the same thing, no, we are not supposed to go there. But you want to go, you go. So, Maharaj Sahib and Masiji, I have heard them saying it, and I had that in the back of my mind. But then I used to follow, Shiva and all. So I used to go to those.
Okay.
So, sorry.
No, go ahead.
We had that same question, and I had a Maharaj Sahib as well. And the answer that I remember, if I'm interpreting correctly, they said, you visit any temple, don't be disrespectful to any religion. Because if you respect, then they will respect your religion. So don't get into that. You can go anywhere. As long as you're not promoting their religion, because that is not what our Tirthankar has said, you're fine. So if we go to masjid, for example, your friend says, hey, come along. You go, be respectful, don't do anything incorrect. But if we come out and then say, this is the way to do it, then you are essentially promoting different principles that is not in line.
And
That was the answer.
I feel like because in India it used to happen that people, the religion conversion happens a lot in India. So that was one of the reasons I felt like because of Maharashtra and Massachusetts, because when they go to village and all, they see a lot of people get converted into Christian because they get a lot of benefits. So that was the reason I think.
And there in India, like I had friends who were Hindus, so they believe in Ganpati, right? And that's not our God, it's a God, not our 24 Tirthankars. Yeah, you go and respect and do what you're supposed to do. Don't be disrespectful. At least that's what that Maharaj said.
So I can, yes.
So I actually had something to interject. So my grandmother was also, like very religious for Jainism and stuff. But we actually started going to a Swaminarayan temple just to understand, what's the similarities and dissimilarities between the two beliefs, if you will. So I think someone said something very critical or very interesting, is that it's still okay to go to anywhere else with the intention of maybe learning or maybe comparing. But if we try to advertise or if we try to, have not have faith in Jainism, and if we begin to think like, oh, maybe this place I'll begin to have more faith, I think that's a little bit kind of that gray area that it's like not acceptable, if you will, or not promoted.
Okay, so based on your discussions, I think I have the logic that gets us there, okay? So Jainism is the truth, right? And whenever we spout lies, that's a form of violence. Whenever we teach lies, that's a form of violence and we'll receive karma for that. For example, if you teach your kids the wrong thing, that's a form of violence and we receive negative karma for that, right? So what happens in the parent example is that obviously the parent wants to promote the truth and minimize the exposure of their children to things that would obfuscate the truth from them, right? So in that respect, it might be that our parents didn't want us to go to a Hindu temple because we didn't have that critical eye yet, or that intention of going with a comparison purpose, right? It would be like exposing you to lies for no reason, right? And then there's this concept of deluding yourself, right? So if this concept of, well, if you promote another religion, you're perpetuating falsehoods, right? And so you would receive negative karma for that. So I could see how in a roundabout way that would get us there, okay? Where, well, based on all that context, now the bright line rule is you can't go to the temple, okay? But just like we talked about, we need that context and we need that interpretation. We need to carry it with us. Yeah, maybe for kids, the bright line rule is you can't go to the temple. You can't go to that temple. You'll get bad karma. But that's not exactly right, okay? It's that you'll go there, and that's fine if you like it, but if you don't understand your own religion enough, okay, well, you'll start believing that, and, that's fine, and now you're getting more and more mohaniya karma, or you're deluding yourself more and more, okay? And obviously we don't want that for our kids. So I can see how we get there, and I did see that before. But it's kind of a uncritical view of it. It's kind of a oversimplification to get there.
Well, what's interesting that after discussion, I realized that something that I've been doing. For example, every time we go to Swaminarayan Mandir, we look for something positive there or something that's happening that's well, and the kids' basketball or the cafe and stuff like that. And subconsciously or unconsciously, we say, okay, they're great, and we compare ourselves to them, that we should do it, what they do it, and things like that. And obviously, that's for our betterment, but at the same time, it's a promotion, right? I mean, if I think about it, that when I make a comment, it's a promotion of BAPS in a way, and for a reason that I guess they do well here in the US. But now I'm going to ask myself, is it a promotion? Or, if I go there, I do the things, respect, and come back, that's one thing. But now when I'm thinking about it and think about positive things that happen there, is that the right thing to do for my karmas as a comparison with Jainism and what you do at Jain centers?
Any answers for me here?
Well, I think learning good from anywhere is not bad to me. You're comparing that to see something, a different opinion, and say, can we do it at our temple? Right? That's what you're doing. Now, you go there, you pray. Do you say Nakar mantra? You pray Shiva, you pray some other god, all different things, right? So, anytime you go, typically the first thing comes in your mind when you have close your eyes and pray, typically would come Nakar mantra in your mind, no matter where you are. Right? So, I don't think anything is wrong in comparing things and how the things are evolved, looking at the fact, looking at the history, and come up with something that can we do something like that. Having quiet temple is such a good thing to have. I mean, we always wish here, can we have a little bit peace when we go to the temple?
As far as we have a clarity that we are going there to see the good things and then coming back, we know because what happens is we take our kids also with us.
Right.
I mean, not negative way, but just want to bring this point that Muslims are very strict about it because they don't want their kids to divert anywhere. They are very strict about it. We are Hindus and Jainism, in Jainism and Hindus, we are very open. We are ready to, okay, let's go, good places, good thing. But as far as we have a clarity in our mind and we discuss with our kids also, yeah, this is very good. But we teach our kids also that we have everything and we have more than what we have. I mean, not because, and we are not trying to say that we are better than others, but if we don't show our own value, then our kids will think, oh, everything is same. So, and then when they would grow, they would not think any difference and they would say, oh, my parents never differentiated it. Why am I differentiating? Okay, I'm going to be married with this person or that person or this person. So this is all actually small things, but because a lot of people say that, my daughter is 12-year-old. I told her, get married to, different temples, and I tell her that, get married to Jainism, but if you cannot make Jainism, then go within Hinduism at least, So see, this is what our thinking is, and then if I open up for everything for them, then my daughter's going to do the same thing. So this is all very, I would say, very, very difficult thing.
Just one comment to your question, and one thing that I have learned as well professionally, and I can give examples some other day. But so comparison is good, learning from others is good, right? We should be learning. But sometimes what I've learned is you learn that and apply here and say, how about, let's say, building a temple made up of marbles, like we have there, but without referencing that. That we are not promoting, you're learning, you're still passing the message. And I've learned this very hard way in my professional work because I have changed roles and locations and regions, and when you reference other region or your past work where you are working, other company, that gets a little bit tricky and sensitive. Okay, so something to be, I never reference, I'm like, hey, I've seen this in past, and that's a relief there. Still you're passing the message.
Yeah.
My answer to your question is that it's fine because you're not promoting falsehoods. You're not causing violence by causing somebody to be deluded about the way the universe works. And so I would think that would be okay. So questions or comments about anything we talked about? Yes.
I have a question. So as a practicing Hindu, learning about Jainism, I think the biggest thing for me is I'm not completely Jain. I'm still learning about it, but I was brought up as Hindu. And so how does that build up karma for me as I'm still kind of getting there to the point where I can call myself Jain?
It doesn't. In fact, it does the opposite. You are slowing down the karma that you are accumulating by learning about the truth. That is, your samvar is increasing and your nirjara is increasing. So that means you're on the right path. Other questions or comments?
So, what are the differences we mention about Hinduism and Jainism?
Sure. The biggest differences are Hindus believe in God as a creator, that the deities have emotions, and that means you should try to please them and try not to displease them. That we are God, Brahman, the absolute, the divine, for God is in everything and everywhere. It is a polytheistic religion. We are not a theistic religion at all. And there are certain categories of things you should do at certain times in your life, such as pursue material prosperity and enjoy that material prosperity, that we do not believe. Those are the main differences. Yes?
So I have another question, I guess. So there's, we spoke about the Hinduism and Jainism. What about something like Buddhism versus Jainism? I know that Buddhism has like multiple, different sects, if you will. But when people usually ask me, like, "Hey, like you're Indian, are you Hindu or whatever?" I usually say no, I'm Jain, and then they're like, "Well, what is Jainism?" And then I'm like, "Well, it's very close to Buddhism than Hinduism in a way." I don't know if this is a good point for today's class, but is there anything, I guess, like anyone else has a comment about Buddhism versus Jainism?
Well, that's a different class entirely, right, Sampriti? But yeah, is anybody interested in learning about that? The differences between Jainism and Hinduism? Because maybe we can do that next week. Anybody want to learn about that? I know Sampriti does. Okay, so does anybody have any differences between Jainism and Buddhism? Okay, so we don't have the answer to your question, but I can get the answer to your question. I can brush up on my Buddhism and see what those differences are. So Chintan told me that he is open to having Dad's class sponsor a lunch before the end of May. Is anybody else interested in sponsoring lunch before the end of May? I know we did it at one point. We cooked and we served food and we created the menu and we advertised for it, and I think it was a big hit. We did Jain food. And I remember one time we wanted to surprise everybody by serving no food, having a fast. That was Dad's class sponsorship. I think that's still on the table. Is anybody still interested in sponsoring the lunch? And if you are, know that the next question I'm going to ask you is, you're in charge of sponsoring, of getting everybody organized to sponsor the Dad's class lunch.
So, a little bit I know.
Physical food making?
What's that?
Yes.
Is this like actually making the food, or is this like a donation or something?
Both. We have to pay for the ingredients. We have to come into the kitchen. We have to make the food that day, and we have to serve it to everybody at lunchtime.
Okay.
Only Chintan wants to sponsor a lunch?
Oh,
I'll sponsor.
I'm good.
Okay, how about this? Let's raise our hands if you're interested in sponsoring lunch. Okay, we got a very good group here. Okay, so nobody wanted to take charge. Samprati wants to help sponsor.
Oh,
lunch.
I raised my hand for the sponsoring.
Oh, okay, great. So we got enough interest. So maybe I'll put Chintan in charge since he did. I would love to be in charge, but I have to learn about Buddhism this week, so I can't do it this week. So we have to find a date. We have to plan the menu. Okay, we have to figure out who's getting the ingredients. Somebody's got to be in charge of collecting all the money, because that's the hard part, right? And then we got to have enough people on that date to help make the food, and then we got to serve the food that day. So it's quite a big project for me to take on, along with other things. Does anybody want to volunteer to be in charge?
I can work with Chintan. I'll work with Chintan.
Okay.
Anybody else?
We all can work.
No, we all can. Somebody's got to be in charge. There's a lot of things to do. He might. Ashish and Chintan might divide up the responsibilities among you. How about that? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming this week. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody online too.
Quick question. So for the sponsorship, is there any could I sell someone or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we will. I will definitely. I have your email address. I will definitely be sure to include you on any of the emails that are going around.
Okay.
Thank you for your interest in sponsoring lunch. Thank you, everybody, for your time this week. It's not something I take for granted. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.